Okay, folks, sit tight for the next hour. You're listening to the Greg Anthony Show called The Investigative Journal. It's January 2nd, 2017, that day on our calendar, and we're here for another year to expose what I call the Vatican-led New World Order. What a subject. And it's not only related to the Vatican and the spiritual aspect of their deception, but it's also related to all of the tentacles that spread through the political worlds all over, and through the secret societies, Knights of Malta, the Freemasons. It's a huge subject that's overlooked by the mainstream media, and that's why I cover it here on what we call the alternative to the alternative news. I've got a lot for you today. I got 5 more dirty secrets regarding the Vatican. We're going to look at the Muslim Student Association and one girl who said that she'd like to see all Jews killed. And because I am, technically Jewish, since my mother's family was Jewish, and even to add more to that, I'm a Polish Jew, and you know what they did to Poland. Maybe that's one reason why I do these stories. It's probably lucky that I'm here, because half my family didn't make it. But anyway, we're going to look at that. I've also got more. I did a story last week regarding some dirty secrets of the Vatican, and I got many emails regarding that story. It was called Vatican Castrates Choir Boys. And holy cow, I got good and bad. One of the bad ones said, here it is. Dear Greg, I've listened to your crap for years, and I do it only to see how crazy you are and all of your followers. I wish you were one of the choir boys. Signed, Keep Up the Bad Work. Wow. And then, of course, I've got some good ones. A couple here one I'll read. It says, Greg, you never amaze me to at what you find out about the Vatican. And thanks a lot. Keep it up. Willful observer. Okay, so there's a couple. And listen, most of the stuff I get is from people that are researching this stuff. And we're all just journalists, really, looking for information. And the reason why I cover this story is because, like I told you, I lived in Rome for 7 years during the Vatican bank scandal, when Cardinal Marcinkus, or Archbishop Marcinkus, the head of the Vatican Bank, yes, was from my hometown of Chicago, and he was implicated with Roberto Calvi, and they were implicated in a financial scam that built millions of dollars from unsuspecting people, turning it over to the mob, etc., etc. They found Roberto Calvi hanging from the Blackfriars Bridge, fearing he was going to spill the beans. Marcinkus, boy, he got away scot-free. They indicted him first for bank fraud, and then they paid off the Italian government $220 million. He was airlifted by our friendly American military to a friendly diocese in Phoenix, where he lived out the majority of his life. And he died a number of years ago. I've got more to that story, but I can't do it today. I got too much to cover because we have to talk a little bit. We talked about the pedophilia in the church, right? One of the dirty secrets was this huge story of pedophilia that's been going on for years. Well, in fact, in the Vatican, it's not just been going on for years. It's been going on since the Middle Ages. Now, since the 1600s, they have kept secret archives, and much of that information is hidden from the public, as well as other information regarding their backing of Hitler, Stalin, etc. They're getting involved in every war, subverting countries, creating what probably we could find out, they've created ISIS now. It never ends, does it? We got a war right now going on. We're only 2 days into the year, folks. There's already been 2 big attacks, one in Istanbul, and where was the other one? Brazil, I think. There was something, I'm not sure. But anyway, just wait. It's coming to your doorstep. And a lot of the stories today show that. But let's get back to this pedophilia. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of cases. We're going to feature Milwaukee, Wisconsin today. The Diocese of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, folks. When was all this stuff on the, there's thousands of priests that have committed these horrible acts, murder. I've done stories where they've buried children under altars, where they created a pigsty in Canada and they buried all these kids there. And none of this gets front page coverage. But then, remember when Tony Alamo, the ministry in 2008, was raided, a Christian ministry, and these guys came in with guns a-blazing, and there were about 4 or 5 children playing on the swings, and then they kidnapped the kids. They arrested Tony for child abuse. They never proved any child abuse. That was front page news, folks. And guess what? He sits in jail now for 175 years, and that's why I'm going to try to get him out this year. And we've got a campaign going. Go to freeTonyAlamo.com, because can't you see what they're doing here? They accuse Christian ministries of what they do. And then the media covers up. They have to cover some of these priests, of course. But listen, if they covered every one like they did Tony Alamo, it would be a front page story on every newspaper every day in every part of the world. That's how bad this really is. And not only that, but it leads to all these it's not only these priests. It then gets into, child trafficking and the pedophile rings that traffic children all over, rich businessmen, Washington big insiders. This is all a connection. All these secret society, all Luciferian. That's what the Pope is all about. All right, so we got to cover that today, and I got a whole bunch of stories. Little clips here that'll make it really interesting. Okay, let's start out with the Jesuit quote, like I do every day almost. Well, let's do the Jesuit, a little part of the Jesuit oath. Now, since Pope Francis came to office, there has been a Vatican campaign online declaring the Jesuit oath listed here to be a hoax. But it's no hoax. In fact, the Jesuit oath of induction, you can go find it and read it. It's incredible. It's too long to do today. I'd spend 2 shows doing it. But the induction listed here is recorded in the Congressional Record of the United States of America. You know where that's at, don't you? House Bill 1523, contested election of a case of Eugene C. Bonnewell against Thomas S. Butler, February 15, 1913, pages 3215 to 3216. You can also find it in a book called Subterranean Rome by Charles Didier, published in New York in 1843, translated from French. Let me just read you a short portion of it, okay? This will be quite interesting. Just a little tidbit of the Jesuit oath, because it's incredible. He says that superior now, when these high-ranking Jesuits get the final oath, not all of them get it. Not all of them get to be so honored to be Lucifer's warriors, as they would probably say. But he says this to them: you have been taught to insidiously plant the seeds of jealousy and hatred between communities, provinces, states that were at peace, and incite them to deeds of blood, involving them in war with each other, and to create revolutions and civil wars in countries that were independent and prosperous, cultivating the arts and the sciences, and enjoying the blessings of peace. To take sides with the combatants, and to act secretly with your brother Jesuit, who might be engaged on the other side, but openly opposed to that with which you might be connected, only that the Church might be a gainer in the end, in the conditions fixed in the treaties for peace, and that the end justifies the means. Wow. That is a nice little portion of it. It goes on and on and on. But it reminded me of the Jesuits work on both sides, folks. Yes, both sides of the fence. Think about it. We uncover all the time these controlled opposition people, Alex Jones. Of course, I would say 99% is Bill Hicks, the former comedian. We've got a number of other of these controlled opposition people who deal primarily with the political areas. But then we got to look at the Jesuits that actually criticize the Jesuits like I do. And they're out there. So, boy, we got a big task ahead of us to figure this out this year, don't we? Figure out who are these guys that are saying they hate the Jesuits, but they're actually working for them because they want to control the opposition, like me. Oh, and then you're going to read. I remember I was in a small town years ago, and one of these, I was living in a place called in Colorado, and one guy, I walked into the library, and one guy was reading Alex Jones, and he looked at me and he says, "You're Greg Szymanski." Yes, Greg Anthony Szymanski. Oh, you are the guy who works for the CIA, and you are the one, I can't believe you live here. He believed Alex Jones. Yeah. And all these other people, that what they do is they marginalize you and they tell lies about you like they did with me. People actually believe them, and they got a bigger listenership because they get paid by the Jesuits hundreds of thousands of dollars to spread this over. That's why their voices are huge on the internet. I remember when Alex Jones first, when he was first getting going, I actually had a show after his. And I know who these guys are. And I know when they started doing this to me that I was on the right track. So you got to make up your own mind who you're going to believe. And I can't go out and say, believe me. I'm just saying, look at the information, look at the fruits of their work, and see where they're going. That's all you can do. Okay, I promised you some more 5 dirty secrets regarding the Vatican and the Jesuits, 5 dirty secrets. A couple here I've covered in the past, but it's always nice to find somebody that, understands this stuff. So let's look at 5 more little dirty secrets of the Vatican here on the Greg Anthony Show called The Investigative Journal. Here we go.
5 dirty secrets of the Catholic Church. Number 5. Nazi gold. In 2000, a group of Holocaust survivors filed a lawsuit against the Vatican, alleging that the Catholic Church had funneled Nazi gold to South America in an effort to help Nazi war criminals avoid punishment. These allegations are based off a 1947 report written by Emerson Bigelow, a U.S. Treasury. He alleges the Vatican briefly stored Nazi gold before it was sent to South America. Number 4. Secret asylums. From the 18th century until the late 20th century, the Catholic Church operated a secret operation known as the Magdalene Asylums. These institutions secretly arrested female prostitutes and other women accused of sexual impurity and hauled them off to Ireland, where they performed slave labor and endured harsh conditions. In 2003, the Irish government paid a settlement exceeding $45 million to survivors. Number 3. Mafia ties. In the 1980s, Vatican financial advisors were alleged to have mafia ties. The scandal centered around the Church's association with the Italian bank Banco Ambrosiano. Paul Marcinkus, president of the Vatican banks, and Roberto Calvi, general manager of Banco Ambrosiano, were believed to have conspired to inflate shares, secure uninsured loans, and illegally fund various political parties around the world. Number 2. Secret archives. Since 1612, the Vatican has housed an extensive secret archive that has been heavily speculated upon. Though some documents in the archives have recently been made available to the public, many feel the secret archives hide a dark history of the Church, including possible connections between the Church and Nazis and secret deals with Benito Mussolini during World War II. Number 1. Abuse cover-up. For years, the Catholic Church covered up numerous cases of child sexual abuse carried out by priests and nuns. In 2009, an investigation found that the Archdiocese of Boston alone secretly handled child sexual abuse cases against more than 70 priests, and in total, it is estimated that over 3,000 priests around the world have been accused of abuse in the past 50 years.
Now tell me, why doesn't that stuff get front page news? And why don't they shut down every Catholic church and school here? Because these predators are still walking around, but they allow them, in fact, give government subsidies to the Vatican and the Catholic churches here. And you're going to see, in the second half hour, I'm going to get into a woman who testifies to being raped by a priest in Milwaukee And you're going to be shocked to see what was going on in that city and what still probably goes on, and how the Vatican, through Ratzinger when he was Pope — we have 2 popes alive now — Ratzinger basically had official documents that told the bishops to not report these cases to the authorities, and the Vatican will handle it. Yeah, the way they handle it is they reassign the priest somewhere else and he does it again. But that never gets front page coverage, does it? No. So we'll get into more on that in the second half hour. I do want to finish up this first half hour with this Muslim student from a university in California who is asking a question to a speaker. And the speaker in this case is a man by the name of J.K. Shandlin, and he wrote a book called The People versus Mohammed. And basically, he's a Jew, and he's asking these Muslim students, do they denounce Hamas, Hezbollah, and these terrorist organizations? You're going to be shocked. And the reason this is really an important story is that I told you a long time ago, the Vatican, through our governments, have created ISIS. This war is going on all over the world. It's the war of all wars. They want to infiltrate. That's why Obama was put here, and Merkel, and all of those people in the EU that are getting tossed out now, because they wanted to flood the Western civilization, our country and Europe, with all of these Muslims. There's 1.2 million in Germany, while they allow Christians to be slaughtered at the same time. You don't see many Christian refugees, do you? Well, I told you that the Trojan horse is already here. We've talked about the Fethullah Gulen movement, which is a movement of charter Muslim schools masquerading as moderates and basically promoting jihad, as he did all over Europe in the years past. And he's been given asylum here. And he's been given by $150 million by our government. That's probably on the low side. While the Democratic Party has denounced charter schools for inner-city black kids. It doesn't make sense. Well, it does if you understand they want to destroy this Western civilization. So you got that. Now you have this. Then we talked about all of these groups that are functioning. The one member in New York, upstate New York, called Islamberg, and they're actually, the FBI's monitoring this group, but they're actually carrying weapons, shouting death to America, marching, and there's like 30 to 40 of these organizations, but they don't kick them out. But yet they put Tony Alamo, and they want to get rid of a Christian ministry. So, folks, they all work together, can't you see? There's a song, Can't You See? You know what I'm talking about. But anyway, it goes on and on. But you got to listen to this clip as this author talks to this Muslim student who's a member of the Muslim Student Association around the country. Here we go. You'll be shocked.
Good evening. I just wanted to say thank you for coming to campus tonight and presenting your point of view. It's always valuable to have two sets of views going on at the same time. Very useful. My name is Jumana Imad Musa Ahmed Al-Bahri, and I'm a student here at UCSD. I was reading your literature. I found that much more interesting than the talk. And I found some interesting things about the MSA, which is an organization that's very active on campus, and it is hosting our annual Hitler Youth Week. You should come out to those events. If you could clarify the connection between the MSA and jihad terrorist networks, because last I checked, we had to do our own fundraising, and we never get help from anyone. So if you could clarify the connection between UCSD's MSA, or if you don't have such information, if you could connect other MSAs on UCs, because the connection wasn't too clear in the pamphlet. Just if you could clarify.
Okay. Will you condemn Hamas here and now?
I'm sorry, what?
Will you condemn Hamas?
Would I condemn Hamas?
As a terrorist genocidal organization.
Are you asking me to put myself on a cross?
so you won't. I actually have had this experience many times. You didn't read the pamphlet because the pamphlet is chapter and verse. The main connection is that the MSA is part of the Muslim Brotherhood Network as revealed in the documents.
I don't think you understood what I meant by that. I meant if I say something, I'm sure that I will be arrested for reasons of Homeland Security. So if you could please just answer my question.
If you condemn Hamas, Homeland Security will arrest you.
If I support Hamas, because your question forces me to condemn Hamas. If I support Hamas, I look really bad.
If you don't condemn Hamas, obviously you support it. Case closed. I have had this experience, I had this experience at UC Santa Barbara where there were 50 members of the Muslim Students Association sitting right in the rows there. And throughout my hour talk, I kept asking them, will you condemn Hezbollah and Hamas? And none of them would. And then when the question period came, the president of the Muslim Students Association was the first person to ask questions. And I said, before you start, will you condemn Hezbollah? And he said, well, that question is too complicated for a yes-no answer. So I said, okay, I'll put it to you this way. I'm a Jew. The head of Hezbollah has said that he hopes that we will gather in Israel so he doesn't have to hunt us down globally. For it or against it?
For it.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and showing everybody what's here. And you're wearing a terrorist neckerchief.
If you understood...
you didn't hear the lady.
Could you please answer my question?
You don't get to make a speech. Yes, sir.
Islam as a religion is a lie wrapped with some facts and truth.
Okay, they cut in with some music, but I think you got the gist there. She actually said she supported rounding up the Jews and killing them. Now, we're allowing students like this Muslim student organization to exist in this country while we take away the rights of Christians and put them in jail. It doesn't seem logical. Look, we're a country of immigrants, but if I recall, most immigrants in the past from Ireland, Poland, Germany, Italy came here to forge a better life, to deal with the problems of this country, as every country has, but not to overthrow it. I've never endorsed overthrowing this country or the government. In fact, I think it's a great country. I mean, I can't figure out better countries to live in. I'm not here to overthrow. I'm here to critique what's happening in this country. First of all, it's not fake news here. Second of all, it's not hate speech to talk the way I do. And thirdly, I believe that many of these people like her, that's exactly what hate speech is. Wanting to kill me? And you're allowed to live here and then get benefits? That's what Obama's here for. And you can look at his past. I told you a long time ago, he can be summed up in 6 words. And I'll give you those 6 words because I have to take a break right now. You're listening to the Greg Anthony Show called The Investigative Journal. Back in 3 minutes on FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the left-behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org. The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
Oh, it is happening here, and I bet we're going to turn it around here on the Investigative Journal. And if you want to get more stories and radio shows regarding the Vatican-led New World Order, just go to my website at arcticbeacon.com. You'll get shows going back over a decade regarding what I call the Vatican-led New World Order. Okay, this is the Greg Anthony Show called the Investigative Journal for 2017. And listen, I wanted to, at the break I said that Obama, who's bringing in all these refugees who are basically, remember the book that I talked about regarding the more Muslims that get into a country, the more they start taking over? Yeah, like when, we're a country of immigrants, but like I said in the first half hour, people came here to assimilate, to find a better world, to live and try to make this country a better place. And what we're doing here is explaining what's really going on behind the scenes, which is not fake news and not hate speech. What that girl said was hate speech. She said she wanted to kill me and every Jew that's on the face of this earth. And I said Obama's policy can be explained in 6 words. Praise Muslims, ignore Christians, and blame the Jews. All right, let's get to the topic of discussion this half hour. I want to get to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and what's going on with that diocese, what went on in the past, people that have come forward, hundreds of people, and how the Vatican tried to cover it up. In fact, even was trying to hide money in a cemetery. This is an amazing story. Not literally digging the money under a grave, but transferring millions into a cemetery project in order not to pay off these victims. Why wasn't I didn't see many front page stories. I don't see anyone talking about the Vatican on CNN, Fox, any of these stations. Not one story, unless it's praising the Pope. Unless it's something that makes the Pope look good, right? Then they'll put it out. They had a big, huge Christmas thing about the Vatican, but they didn't tell you that was Luciferian worship going on. Now, in this segment, you're going to hear this woman talk about how she was raped by a priest. You're going to also hear some other victims. And if I have time, I want to get into, there's a whole psychological element here. Why so many Catholic priests? They have the vow of celibacy. Could it be a repression of sex, their sexual behavior that's causing all of this? It's an amazing look when you start looking behind the scenes, and a lot of these ex-priests that come out, who, I remember one I, in fact, talked to, said that he wanted to get nearer to God, but once he spent 5 or 6 years with these priests, he realized it was corrupt. Now, I said, what if people taught what the ceremonies of the Vatican really are, these sacraments and all of these Luciferians, communion, all of this stuff, what it really means, none of these priests would even, attempt to join the church. So that's why this show is important, because we bring out the elements. I was a Catholic myself. I know this stuff. I was an epistle reader as a kid. I know what their ceremonies are like. I know how I was deceived, and all I want to do is tell people that. That's not hate speech. What's hate speech is what that girl said, that Muslim girl. And what's hate speech is when, the Pope or our government deceives you and tells you a lie. Because I said, isn't it really the truth? The truth is simple here. It's lying that's complicated and confusing, and that's what they do. And that's why they're bringing ISIS here, right to your doorstep. So let's wake up. And let's get to the story, because it's very important, this story, because there's so many child abuse cases all over for hundreds of years. Never gets front page news, but, when they frame a Christian pastor, that's all over the place. And people in the world are frightened of him. You ought to be frightened any time you see one of those guys walking around in a black suit with that little collar. Run for the hills. I'm telling you, these guys, and especially now we got a Jesuit Pope. I mean, did you hear the Jesuit oath I just read in the first half hour? It's incredible. Now, let me start this, and let me say by this. This lady was told by the priest who raped her, if you tell anybody, your parents will burn in hell. These guys, just when you think you heard it all. Well, let's listen to this shocking truth in this lady's testimony in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In fact, it's dear to me because I grew up on a dairy farm in Burlington, Wisconsin, which isn't far from Milwaukee. And I tell you, this is an amazing story. Never gets front page coverage. Here we go.
It was a Saturday, and I was 8 years old. And my father took my younger sister and I, and we drove out to Lake Geneva to visit with this priest, William Effinger. At one point in the day, Father Effinger said he needed help in the church with candles. And my father said, go help him. And we went into the church, where he assaulted me for a period of time and ultimately ended up raping me. While he was raping me, I didn't understand what was happening. I just knew there was this incredible pain and I could hardly breathe. And I kept praying that God would just let me die. And when he finished, he stood up and he looked at me and he said, if you tell anybody what you did, they won't believe you. And if you tell anybody, your parents will burn in hell. And then he gave me penance to do. And he turned and looked at me, and he smoothed his hair back with both of his hands, and he walked down the aisle of the church, and I remember hearing the door close. And I just sat there because I didn't know what I should do. And eventually I realized that there was blood on my legs, and there was blood on the new purple shorts that my grandma had given to me for my birthday. And so when I got to the end of the aisle of the church, I wiped the blood off with some of the holy water. And I went and I sat outside under this big tree, and I was just crying because I was in pain and I didn't understand what had happened to me, and I was scared. As a child who went to Catholic school, we were taught that the priest is basically the closest you'll ever get to God. And for me, when I was raped by that priest, it just pulled my entire foundation out from under me. Everything was just taken away in that day.
Eventually, Mother Effinger was convicted of sexual assault on another child and died in prison. Monica never got her day in court because of the statute of limitations. But the Diocese of Milwaukee sued her to recover $14,000 in legal expenses.
They very much were trying to intimidate me and to beat me down and to hold me out as the example, saying, this is what will happen to you if you come forward and tell your truth.
Wow, what a story, huh?
Monica was not alone in her battle for justice in Milwaukee. Hers was one of hundreds of cases which were aggressively challenged by the diocese as they were compelled to pay about $30 million in settlements.
In all these years, I have to say that the Archdiocese of Milwaukee has a demonstrated history of having been both the most callous and the most disturbing. They have fundamentally violated the fundamental safety principles applying to children.
Jeff Anderson has represented victims of clergy abuse for 29 years. He has long argued that Milwaukee is following procedures laid down in Rome.
When it comes to the Vatican and its role in this crisis, all I have ever seen them do is talk, both denying responsibility and saying that they're doing something, when in fact they're doing nothing other than what they've done in the past for decades and centuries, which is to deny, minimize, blame, keep secrets, and protect themselves.
Intimidation is the strategy. It's not part of it. It is the strategy. You've exposed this part of us. We're coming after you. We're coming after you. And no one's going to dare to file a lawsuit again. And it's meant to intimidate and make people afraid.
When he was 13 years old, Peter Isley entered St. Lawrence Seminary in Wisconsin.
At a very, very young age, I had an absolute faith and belief and love of the Roman Catholic Church, of its rituals, of its traditions, even as a small boy.
At the seminary, Peter was a victim of repeated sexual abuse by his spiritual director, Father Liefeld. In 1988, when Peter was in his late 20s, he found the courage to confront his abuser and report to the church authorities. He soon discovered that he was not alone.
There were survivors just independent of each other, just starting to come forward across the United States. Now we know across the world, but starting, and we all went down the same path, which was we went to the religious officials and authorities, first the bishops and the provincials, and reported to them what had happened to us. And now in my case, there were promises made. The provincial told me, we're going to keep Father Liefeld away from children. We've got him in a secure treatment facility. He's never going to be around children, this kind of thing. It's when I found out that they had lied to me, that he was in fact around children, that he was under no supervision at all, that there was no consequences whatsoever, that no one was watching him, that I then came forward publicly.
6 years later, Father Liefeld was finally arrested and admitted other past abuses in this court deposition.
I know that I touched his penis. I don't remember whether or not he touched mine. I didn't understand that there would be a psychological damage to the young man.
I'm the victim. So why am I in hell?
Peter Isley founded the Milwaukee chapter of SNAP, a survivors' network of those abused by priests.
My brother is the victim of criminal sexual assault. I was raped at 13 years old in my church. He admitted to you, Bishop Skelba, what he was and what he had done. You sent him back to work. Victims can't have peace until they have justice.
He was reported to the Archdiocese, and by 14 families from that parish. And what did the Archdiocese do? Transfer him again. Why? I want to know why.
The Vatican has always claimed the responsibility for these cases rests with the local bishops and dioceses. Jeff Anderson disagrees.
In every case that we have worked on for 29 years, the Vatican and its role has been prominent because every action taken by every bishop and archbishop and cardinal in connection with sexual abuse is effectively orchestrated and controlled by the Vatican. Every action taken has demonstrated to us that all roads lead to Rome and to the Vatican.
The Vatican's secret archives contain the Church's records back through the centuries, including evidence relating to sexual abuse cases from the early Middle Ages to the present day. As a sovereign nation, the Holy See cannot be compelled to hand over its original documents or any copies held by their embassies worldwide. The only hope for those representing victims of sexual abuse is to sue individual dioceses. That was how Jeff Anderson was able to subpoena crucial correspondence between Monica's former Archbishop, Cardinal Dolan, and Cardinal Humes, prefect of the Congregation for the Clergy in Rome.
We have evidence that Archbishop Dolan got express permission from the Vatican to move $57 million from diocesan funds into a cemetery trust. And that permission was given by the Vatican almost immediately.
Two key words in Latin from Cardinal Humes said it all. Nihil obstat. Nothing stands in your way. With these two words, the Vatican allowed the diocese to protect its millions from further legal claims of abuse victims.
To me, it was designed to do one thing: to keep the Archdiocese and the Vatican from having to account for their crimes and complicity in them. No other real or legitimate reason.
The Church argued that the money was always committed to their cemeteries, and a court upheld the transfer. Meanwhile, the diocese declared bankruptcy. While they recently proposed to set aside $4 million in a victims fund, there are over 550 outstanding claimants. Monica Barrett and Peter Isley among them.
This is a beautiful cemetery. They're doing a terrific job of really maintaining this sacred space. You don't need $57 million for this space and 7 other cemeteries. The real purpose was to keep money from compensating childhood victims of sexual assault by priests in this archdiocese from court-ordered settlements, period. And that is so cynical and so just unacceptable. And it's just a further way of trying to hide things. You're hiding money in the cemetery just like you hide sex offenders in parishes.
Wow, it's just nothing but power and ambition to control the world. That's what
Vatican departments worked with bishops from around the world to deal with the exploding clergy sex abuse crisis. The new pope brought his own ideas. The first publication of his papacy referred to the urgency of, quote, the current situation and the problem of homosexuality and the priesthood. It called on seminary directors to screen out gay men. Years earlier, He had changed the catechism to say that homosexuality was an objective disorder. He'd invited leading experts to Rome to advise the church.
I was informed that there was going to be a meeting at the Vatican, and it was a scientific meeting that the Vatican was calling to learn more about child and adolescent sexual abuse.
Dr. Martin Kafka and a distinguished international panel of psychiatrists tried to explain the complex set of factors that contributed to the crisis. But there was one issue his hosts were not keen to explore.
The number of Catholic clergy who are accused of or prosecuted for child and adolescent sexual abuse vastly outnumber the number of Protestant clergy. So what is it about the Catholic clergy that makes them distinctly different? And one of those factors is this issue of suppressing one's sexuality to better serve God.
They tried to address the issue of screening out gay men from the priesthood.
The data that we have suggests that men who abuse children are probably equally likely to be heterosexual or homosexual in their adult orientation. But people who abuse adolescents, post-pubertal children, if you will, they are more likely to reflect their own adult sexual orientation in whom they victimize.
And for so many years, this had been a closed world of boys and young men.
A lot of this abuse took place in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, and things were a lot different back then. Young men were being recruited for the priesthood in high school.
Okay, I'm going to cut it off there because we only have about 5 minutes, and they were basically talking about Ratzinger at the time. He was the Pope at the time, and one of the major things about him was that he was basically there to cover this problem up. And how he did that was by sending out basically a Pope's order to all bishops in the world that you're not to take this to the authorities, that will handle this as an internal investigation, which basically never happens. They just transfer these priests. So we have this huge pedophile ring in the church, and Ratzinger was trying to cover it up. And they had written documents, not fake news. But nothing happened. Shouldn't he be complicit in a crime of covering up actual child abuse and sexual abuse in the church? Of course. And that should be all those, Cardinal Dolan, who's now in New York, right? All of these priests were covering up these crimes. And then again, they will blame innocent people who are talking against them, i.e. Tony Alamo's one. Father Alberto Rivera, a Jesuit priest who wanted to tell the truth. Did you hear what that lawyer, Mr. Anderson, said? He said what they do is they will marginalize you, attack you once you alert people of these crimes. What do you think Tony Alamo was doing? That's what they do. And all this show does is highlight this act, what really is going on behind the scenes that you don't get in the mainstream, because they control that as well. You don't get on most of these controlled opposition radio stations on the internet because they control that just as well. And it seems now, as we begin in 2017, we take 2 steps forward, 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards, because there's always another problem they create. If you have to watch the mainstream news like I do to at least bring some kind of analysis here, you would be disheartened tremendously to understand, when you start understanding where it comes from, then how they deceive you, and then you see the turmoil all over the world. it becomes an enormous challenge to continue, right? But you have to. And you have to take 3 steps forward every day and not allow them to allow you to walk backwards. Now, as we move, we only got a minute or so, but as we move into the year, isn't it interesting that we all know now, you Bible experts out there, I'm just going to make a comment here, but remember when the Vatican was wounded, right? And then they were restored when they got together with Mussolini. And now their power is growing and growing and growing. And in the Bible it says once the wound is restored, there will be 8 kings. And then the you-know-what will hit the fan. Well, isn't it interesting that Pope Francis is the 8th Pope who is the king of this Luciferian world? So we have this kind of prophecy working its way towards this final confrontation between good and evil, between God and Lucifer. Quite interesting times we live in. And I look forward to covering every minute of it with you this year. So go to my website at arcticbeacon.com, or you can listen to this show every evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's Monday through Friday Pacific time on FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Have a good evening and see you tomorrow.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.